The Jamie D Show starts June 6th and will be every Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. until 11 a.m. PST, live on KSHP AM 1400 and 107.1 FM. You can also stream my show live on KSHP.com. Let's make magic, Vegas.
For the grinders who rise before the sun, the predators who stalk the odds, the winners who demand an edge.
You're listening to the boss of the big ball, JP the Ticket.
Listen every weekend, Saturday and Sunday from 6 a.m. to 7 a.m. to Vegas Scoreboard Express live on KSHP 107.1 FM and AM 1400 as I unleash a barrage of insightful analysis, expert predictions, and winning strategies from the sharpest minds in sports betting to get your money back from the sports books. Go to jptheticket.com and tune in to KSHP this weekend, 6 a.m. to 7 a.m. to win with the Sharps. JP the Ticket. Vegas Scoreboard Express. All money, all sports, no bull. Miss the live show? Subscribe to Vegas Scoreboard Express on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, TuneIn, and wherever you enjoy your favorite podcast and radio listening.
The world-famous radio shopping show, weekday on 1400 KSHP North Las Vegas and KSHP.com.
The views and opinions expressed in the following program are those of the program's participants and do not necessarily reflect those of station staff, management, and advertisers.
It's time for the most interactive radio program in Las Vegas today. It's time for Pushing the Limits with Brian Shapiro. Brian will talk sports, politics, entertainment, and anything that matters to you. Feel free to call Brian at 702-221-7283.
You want answers? I want the truth!
Now, Pushing the Limits, here's Brian Shapiro.
All right, what's up, everybody? Happy Hump Day, happy Wednesday. It is Pushing the Limits. Thank you for joining us on the FM AM dial and all over the World Wide Web, YouTube, Twitter, TikTok. Big show lineup for you today. Obviously, we're going to be covering the breaking news that took place last night where Mark Davis has fired Josh McDaniels and General Manager Mr. Ziegler, so we'll be getting into that here in just a minute. And certainly I have a lot of opinions and a lot to talk about when it comes to this issue. The bottom of the hour, we're going to be covering the growing anti-Semitism or the acts of anti-Semitism that are happening throughout this country on college campuses, people taking down posters of innocent people that have been kidnapped in Israel. We're going to talk about that, and I have some audio for you that I'm going to play to prove it. It is a growing problem in this country, and it is a problem that is not going away anytime soon. So we will talk about that coming up at the bottom of the hour. Coming up in hour number 2, man, I love having this guy on because I don't always talk to him about poker. We talk about a bunch of world issues, and we'll get into some politics with him, a little bit of everything, and he's got a new poker show that we're going to be promoting too. Arguably the best poker player in the world over the course of at least the last 2 decades. Real Kid Poker Daniel Negreanu is going to be joining us in hour number 2. He's also a VGK. I don't know if he's a big of a VGK fan as he used to be, but he's certainly a huge hockey fan. So we'll talk to him a little VGK hockey as well. He'll be joining us in hour number 2. Looking forward to that. Let's start with the breaking news and give you my opinions on what has taken place in the last 24 hours with the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, I had Scott Gully Gulbranson on the show yesterday, and he pretty much said he expected that Josh McDaniels would probably be fired in the next week or so, and he was right. Because last night, on your trick-or-treat Halloween night, news broke, and the Las Vegas Raiders made it official that Mark Davis has fired Josh McDaniels and Mr. Ziegler, the general manager. Let me start out by saying this and give a little bit of credit. Even though this is Mark Davis's problem because he's the one who hired Josh McDaniels to a 6-year deal, and by the way, he's going to have to pay him over the course of the next 4 years, and my understanding is he's still paying off John Gruden. So he's given up a bundle of cash, but let's give credit at least where some credit is due before we start hammering Mark Davis. And listen, rightfully so. You should be hammering Mark Davis for really bad decision-making, but this was the right decision. Mark Davis made the right decision. Don't waste the rest of the year. Get rid of him now. Start fresh. So I give Mark Davis a lot of credit for doing the right thing and getting rid of Josh McDaniels. And, listen, a lot of people might disagree with getting rid of Ziegler as well, but, Ziegler was part of the problem as well, in my personal opinion. They've made a lot of bad decisions here. Getting Garoppolo here, certainly one of them, one of many. But this was the right decision, and I applaud Mark Davis for doing that. Now, if you want to know the financials, it's pretty daunting, to say the least. Mark Davis has more money than God, but just to give you an idea of what's transpiring here, they're paying somewhere between $40 million and $80 million for John Gruden and Josh McDaniels not to coach the team. That's a lot of money. I mean, you could definitely buy a couple WNBA franchises possibly for that much money. So this is a lot of money. But again, I'm going to go to what I said before. Mark Davis made the right decision. It was a horrendous decision to hire Josh McDaniels in the first place. And when they hired him, I said that on the air. Why? I don't care what he did in New England because he wasn't the head coach. You had probably the best player in the history of football as your starting QB in Tom Brady, and probably one of the best coaches, even though Bill Belichick's struggling this year, one of the best coaches to ever step onto a football field in Bill Belichick. So I'm not going to give Josh McDaniels credit for anything. I'm sorry, I'm just not going to do that. If he wants to go back and be an offensive coordinator somewhere, good luck. Wouldn't want him here. Wouldn't want him out on my staff, on my football team. He has the communication skills of a dead ant. Let's just go with number one there. Josh McDaniels didn't know how to communicate with people. He was a terrible communicator. I talked to people within the organization that say he'd walk in and at best say hello to somebody. He didn't have any personal relationships with any of the players. It starts there. And yes, in this case, I will make an analogy to Becky Hammon, the opposite. And I know it's very different. But Becky Hammon is so personable with her players. She has great relationships. Some of the best coaches in this game, they have personal relationships with their athletes, with their players. Josh McDaniels, F-. As far as his X's and O's, as far as his play calling and getting the maximum of the talent he has, I'll also give him an F on that as well. The defense did show some signs of improvement at times this year, but that's not Josh McDaniels. That's their defensive coordinator. Josh McDaniels was a horrific head coach here. Horrific. Terrible. I give him an F. Awful. I mean, I really thought it was sealed, dealed, and delivered after they got blown out by the Bears. I think it was just another week and another game. But that was the end of it. I think when you get blown out by arguably the worst team in football, I think that was the end of Josh McDaniels. Players don't like him. Now, they're professional. They're not going to say that in public. I can tell you right now that there are a plethora of players on this Raiders football team that did not like Josh McDaniels. Period. Now, I have some more criticisms, and I know this is just an interim head coach, and I know some people don't know a lot about this guy, Antonio Pierce. He played in the NFL. He had a nice NFL career. His coaching career is something to be left desired, ladies and gentlemen. That's why they're calling him the interim head coach. I don't think there's any chance that Antonio Pierce will be the head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders next year. With that being said, I still have problems with putting him in there. Why? Well, first of all, he had this big NCAA investigation at Arizona State, where an anonymous person sent a dossier of dozens of pages to the Arizona State Athletic Department. Within the dossier were receipts, pictures, screenshots, and emails related to multiple potential recruiting violations committed by the Sun Devil staff. And the person at the front of it, allegedly, is Antonio Pierce. I don't want somebody with that kind of baggage coming to my football team to begin with. And I didn't know this stuff about this guy until I looked into him a little bit. He coached a high school football team, one of the best football teams in the country, and he was fired after a couple years because all they did was get worse. So he failed at the high school level as a head coach. He had these allegations and these issues at the college level. Is Mark Davis trying to give this guy the trifecta? Now, I hope it works out for Antonio Pierce. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he'll be able to turn this thing around. I doubt it. We've learned that Garoppolo will most likely, according to sources, be benched, and that O'Connell will be starting. I applaud them for doing that because I think at this point in the season, you have to do that, and quite frankly, it should have been done a couple weeks ago, thanks to Josh McDaniels making another bad decision. But you got to clear house here, man. You got to reset. And you know what I loved about Mark Davis's father is that he owned mistakes. If you go to some of his press conferences and mistakes that he made and firings, you see this on social media. He looks in front of the cameras and he says, you know, I was afraid to admit that I made a mistake, but I made a mistake. We need Mark Davis to own what he did. That's what I want to see from Mark Davis. then people will start forgiving him for making bad decisions. We all make bad decisions in life. We make bad decisions at work. We're all human beings. We're not perfect. Mark Davis has made a lot of mistakes. The best thing you can do as a human being is hold a press conference today or tomorrow, answer questions from members of the media, and say, you know what? Here's why I hired Josh McDaniels. I was wrong. I made a mistake. I'm going to get some really good people within this organization to make the football decisions moving forward. I'll be hovering above it, but they're going to be making the decisions. If Mark Davis held a press conference today and he did that, he would have the support from Raider Nation. I guarantee you he would. Doesn't mean you still can't criticize him, but he would have more support. Part of the reason why Raider Nation is so upset at Mark Davis is because he doesn't own up to mistakes. His father did. Hold a press conference today and say, I made a mistake. You know, I shouldn't have hired Josh McDaniels. It was obviously a mistake. Now we're going to move forward, and here's what I'm going to do moving forward. That's what I want to hear from Mark Davis, and I really think that's what most of the fan base wants to hear from Mark Davis. Now, John Gruden wasn't his fault in regards to what John Gruden did and said in the despicable. However, I will go back to that contract as well. Can you name me in the history of sports a guy, NBA, NFL, Major League Baseball, somebody that is signed to a $100 million contract that has only won half their games? Now, John Gruden obviously is a big difference between a John Gruden coaching a team and a Josh McDaniels, but Mark Davis only won half his games in his career. Or, I'm sorry, John Gruden. Mark Davis never coached a game in his life. But yet Mark Davis signed him to a $100 million deal. We got to stop it with the salacious hirings and big names and hire somebody that can coach, that can win football games and rebuild the Las Vegas Raiders. That's what Mark Davis needs to do. He's made a lot of bad mistakes. And I'll tell you something, when people want to give him credit for being a great owner of the Aces, you know what he's done? He's stayed out of decision-making. Mark Davis has stayed out of decision-making, and he's let the basketball people make decisions. And that's why Mark Davis has become a very, very successful WNBA owner. He has not done that with the Raiders. He's hovered above it. And he's kind of been a big part of the decision-making process. Listen, I can go back and I could name you 20 mistakes that Mark Davis has made just in the last couple of years. I could do that, and I can tell you that Bisaccia should still be our head coach. I think it would have worked out for him here, and Ole was a really good offensive coordinator, and during that year when Gruden was fired several years back, the Raiders making the playoffs, I thought that was a phenomenal accomplishment, and they would have gone through a brick wall for Bisaccia because they really liked him. You're telling me these players put that sort of effort in for Josh McDaniels? Of course they didn't. They didn't put that extra step in for Josh McDaniels. I'm not saying these guys don't want to win. I would dispute that with Garoppolo, but a guy like Devontae Adams, man, he wants to win. He wants to win football games. You know, Max Crosby, this guy's competitive as anybody. He wants to win. Josh Jacobs, competitive. These guys want to win games, right? They want to win games. And, you know, at some point, you just lose confidence, and maybe the effort wouldn't be where it normally would be if you had a guy like Bisaccia here, which, again, they would have gone through a brick wall for. Apparently, reports are out that Mark Davis was angry and volatile, and over the past couple of weeks met with players, so he was well informed of their complaints and the players' opinions regarding McDaniels' path for them. Source says that owner Mark Davis' decision to blow up his football operation just 25 games after hiring McDaniels and Ziegler started to feel inevitable in recent weeks. Davis was volatile and angry. The players weren't happy either. So it appears to me that Davis did what he probably should have done at the beginning of the year, which was talk to his players and talked about frustrations. And I would imagine a lot of these players, I'm guessing here, but a lot of these players behind closed doors did not have a lot of good things to say about Josh McDaniels. That is going to be my opinion on that, and that's probably what happened. And then, of course, losing and getting blown out to the Bears, and we saw the dismal performance on Monday night. That was it. That was the end. So, again, give Mark Davis credit for pulling the trigger and doing the right thing and firing Josh McDaniels, and I'm okay with the firing of Ziegler as well. This is now the last straw. For me, anyway. This is the last straw. You better make a good hire here. Learn from UNLV athletic director. Learn from our athletic director here at UNLV what a good hire is. And I know college game is very, very different. I understand that. But Eric Harper hired a guy, Coach Odom, who immediately changed the culture at UNLV football. He immediately turned the program around. UNLV is a good football team. Are they the best team in the conference? No, but they're certainly one of the better teams in the conference. And to a team that hasn't won and hasn't had this kind of year in decades, it's a hell of a hire. But you know what? Odom understands personal relationships with people. He knows how to recruit. He's recruited locally. The players would go through a brick wall for him. They love him. The media likes him. There's a reason for that. Odom's a good coach. He seems like a really good guy. He wants to be here. Very personable. Very complimentary to the media. You know, Odom does all the things right. I know the college game is very different. And I'm not saying you need to hire an NFL coach that kisses the ass of the media. Ask Bill Belichick about that. I'm not saying you have to be great with the media to be a really good NFL coach. That's not what I'm saying. It helps, but that's not what I'm saying. You need to find a guy that knows how to rebuild an NFL football team, a guy that has a track record. That's not easy. There's not a lot of great coaches out there that are looking for a job. There are some. There are not many. And listen, I put some odds up on social media for fun. I put Wayne Newton at 2,000 to 1. To be the next head coach. I put Becky Hammond at 200 to 1. Is that too low? I don't know.
I think it's a little too low.
Is it too low? Okay, I don't know. But in all seriousness, I think one of the big names out there is Jim Harbaugh. Now, my personal opinion is I don't think Harbaugh would take this job. Harbaugh could take a lot of jobs that he wants. I don't think he wants this one. He doesn't want to be in a rebuilding stage with the Raiders. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe if the money's right, Harbaugh would take it. Would I be okay with that hire? Absolutely. He's Jim Harbaugh. But Ben Johnson's another name that's come up. Dan Quinn, another name. Here's an interesting name. And if you remember the days where he played at Boise State, Kellen Moore, the former offensive coordinator of the Dallas Cowboys. Now, the problem I have with Kellen Moore, you know, there's a reason why he's not in Dallas anymore. So I don't know. He's never been a head coach before, so I don't know. That's not a guy. Brian Flores is another guy. Odds are 12 to 1. And then I go down the list and I look at, listen, Rich Bisaccia is not going to get hired here. He's 12 to 1. It should be 100 to 1. He's not going to get hired here. But, you know, I go down the list and look, we have some fun with some of these guys like Deion Sanders at 50 to 1 who would never take this job. John Gruden at 100 to 1. That ain't happening. Bill Belichick 33 to 1. I don't think that would happen either. You never know. Things can be crazy. But certainly Jim Harbaugh would probably be the favorite. The problem is I don't think Harbaugh would take the job. That's my opinion.
There's one on the list that you have that is a sleeper.
Who's that?
Lincoln.
Oh, well, you know, Lincoln Riley you're talking about,
Yep.
14 to 1. Another possibility, this would be a great, I think he would probably take the job.
Yeah.
Ken Dorsey's another one we haven't talked about. So there are a lot of names out there that I think could work out. The good news here is this. We don't have to see Josh McDaniels on the sidelines anymore because that guy's a clown. And I've been saying that forever. But I said that way before. I mean, we're talking a year ago. A year ago, I was saying that Josh McDaniels is not a good head football coach, and it was proven. It was a head scratcher when Mark Davis hired this guy. If I'm Mark Davis, I hire people around me to hire a new head coach. Stay out of it. Mark Davis needs to stay out of it. When you make bad decision after bad decision after bad decision, take the ego out of the equation and just stay out of it. Worry about the financials. That's fine. And the Raiders are doing very, very well financially because they're one of the most profitable teams in the NFL. So don't feel bad at Mark Davis's his own issues for hiring John Gruden and hiring Josh McDaniels. I don't feel pay up that $40 to $80 million. You'll get that back in a week. So I'm not too worried about that. But Mike McDonald, another name that has come up on the list of possible candidates. Listen, we have no idea. I put out a video and I made a joke yesterday about Tom Brady becoming the next head football coach. First of all, he just signed a contract doing color commentary, and that would never happen anyway. Tom Brady said time and time again he has no interest in being a coach or general manager. But I did it as a joke just to have a good time. But at the same time, let's be honest, folks, and I hate to spoil your parade, so to speak, for lack of a better term. This season's over for the Las Vegas Raiders. It's over. Throw it away. And it's sad that we're not, are we even halfway through the season? It's sad, but this season is over. There's no chance they make the playoffs. So why not sit down Garoppolo, who just a atrocious game on Monday. He's had a terrible season. And give this kid O'Connell a chance. Give him more of a look. I like some things I've seen from O'Connell, but I think I want to see more of him. So my understanding is that he's going to be starting this weekend against the New York Giants. I think it'd be great to see him get a W. be good for morale, and maybe the team can rally around him. He seems like a good kid. He's young. And let's see where it goes from there. Josh McDaniels it seemed like he was anti-O'Connell. Starting Hoyer a few weeks ago was a frickin' disaster. I don't know what Josh McDaniels was thinking there. I mean, there's so many things I could say about McDaniels and why he's just an awful head football coach and the mistakes that he made in every category. But I think we're beyond that now. He's gone. I've been calling for him to be fired forever. Now, listen, I'm not one of those guys that held up a sign, right, that said fire Josh McDaniels, but he's gone. We're going to continue to monitor this story. We'll update it some more tomorrow, but we will see as things move forward here what Mark Davis does. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we are going to talk about a very serious topic, which is anti-Semitism spreading throughout the country. I have the audio to prove it. It needs to stop. We all need to call it out, and we need to come together as Americans and say, this is wrong. We'll bring you that when we come back. We'll take a quick break. You're listening to Pushing the Limits right here on KSHP.
Hey everybody, are you struggling to find a pizza place that reminds you of Brooklyn? That true blue New York style pie? Well, worry no more. Stallone's Italian Eatery Pizza is a knockout. We're located at 467 East Silverado Ranch Boulevard, just off of Premium Road, half a mile east of South Point Casino, just minutes from the Las Vegas Strip. Come by and grab a slice of pie. Plus, check out our Brooklyn-inspired Italian cuisine. Our sandwiches are super. Hero, that is. Because why be a sub when you can be a hero? Stallone's Italian Eatery is here to serve you phenomenal food, Vegas. Forget about it.
Located only 4 miles from downtown Colorado Springs and just 10 miles from Pikes Peak, Hyatt Place Colorado Springs Garden of the Gods offers spacious rooms featuring contemporary decor with stylish furnishings, including divided living and sleeping areas, the Hyatt Grand Bed, state-of-the-art media and work center, a 42-inch flat-panel high-definition television that easily integrates with laptops and other devices, and complimentary breakfast is included in your stay. Hyatt Place Colorado Springs Garden of the Gods at 503 West Garden of the Gods Road. Visit HyattPlace.com.
At the Bagel Cafe, the recipe is simple, good food, and generous portions. Family owned and operated since 1996, the Bagel Cafe is a unique restaurant where you can get anything your appetite desires. From a bagel and a schmear to piled high corned beef on homemade rye, fresh fruit platters and salads, or creamy New York cheesecake. Check them out at thebagelcafeLV.com. The Bagel Cafe, where there's something delicious for everyone.
Pine Hollow Winery is the first and only boutique winery in the Las Vegas city limits that features its own handcrafted wines. Located on the west side, just minutes from the Strip at 7018 West Charleston, Pine Hollow wines are available for tasting by the glass, bottle, or for carryout. Peach lovers, pick up a bottle of the Warm Fuzzy, which is a sweet Chardonnay-style wine made with peach and apricots. Visit PineHollowWinery.com for their events, wine menu, and hours. That's PineHollowWinery.com.
Hey everybody, it's Brian Shapiro from Pushing the Limits here. I want to tell you guys about my good friends at the Postal Annex. They have a notary signing agent on-site daily, no appointment needed, and they offer a full scale of printing services from shipping labels to documents, business cards, banners, photos, and business signage. They're your passport service headquarters. They offer passport photos, and they can renew your adult passports. If you're traveling in a hurry, they can get those passports to you within 7 days or less. Mailbox rentals with a physical street address, and they also receive your packages from Amazon, UPS, FedEx, USPS, and more. Here's the best part. If you're a Pushing the Limits listener, they have an introductory rate of only $39 for a 3-month service. You can't beat it. Give them a call, 702-873-8005. Check them out at 6130 West Flamingo Road. It's the Postal Annex. And tell them I sent you.
Buying or selling a home is a huge life event that requires guidance from an expert in the industry and community. My name is Blake Wynn. You may recognize my name as my grandfather was the best governor the state of Nevada has ever had. Growing up in Las Vegas, I've come to know this community intricately. Now, I am raising a family here as well, so I understand all the issues impacting our home and quality of life. As the top realtor for the #1 real estate team at Keller Williams, you can have confidence in my experience, knowledge, and track record. When it comes to buying, selling, or investing in real estate, choose a name you can trust and someone who understands the community you call home. Call Blake Gwynn today and experience the difference of a trusted expert. 702-540-3311.
All right, welcome back, everybody. It is Pushing the Limits on a Wednesday. Quick programming note for you. Seth Moulton, congressman out of Massachusetts who ran for president, is going to be actually joining us on the show tomorrow. He had a last-second engagement he had to attend to today, so he'll be joining us on the program tomorrow. Have no fear. And Paul McKeskey is going to be joining us in studio on Friday. Anti-Semitism is running rampant through this country and, quite frankly, throughout the world, and it's at an all-time high, certainly in my lifetime. There's a lot of misinformation on social media, and a lot of these people that are holding these Free Palestine rallies talk about Israel and the land that they say was stolen from them back in the 1940s. And my response to that is always the same. The people that took that land, or however you want to categorize it, they're all dead now. Why? This happened well over 80 years ago. Most of them are no longer with us. And the people that are being massacred now and the people that are suffering had nothing to do with what took place in the 1940s. Israel's not going anywhere. And if you want peace, you have to come to some sort of two-state resolution. But the problem we have now with all the misinformation on social media and all the people that are spreading misinformation on social media, the problem with that is that they're taking down posters, and again, as I mentioned earlier, they're spreading misinformation about Israel and the Israeli people, and it's got to stop. So I want to play you some audio to prove to you what I'm talking about, because it needs to be called out on both sides of the aisle, and it shouldn't be political. Hate is wrong. Whether you're Islamophobic or whether you're anti-Semitic, it's all bad, it's all wrong, and we need to call out these people. There was a student at Stony Brook University in class saying that people that went to a rally raising money to support Israel should burn in hell. Now, appropriately, her professor called it despicable. And then they had this interaction that was recorded in class. Have a listen to this.
Professor, you called me a disgrace, but I think it's very important to note how irresponsible it was of you and this group of people, many of whom don't have access to what I said, to completely misrepresent what I said. I never said that all Jewish people should go to hell, and I would never, ever say that.
I said that what you said is that people who attended that rally should burn in hell. Do you stand by that?
I do. I have a question for you.
There's nothing for me to say.
Okay.
Okay, so there you go. She basically said, and she just owned it and admitted to it, this ignorant woman, she's despicable, and that professor is 100% correct in calling her out, that because there was a rally, not calling for innocent people to die, but a rally to raise money for Israel and the people that have been abducted and the families who have lost loved ones, she said all those people that attended that rally on that campus should, quote, burn in hell. That is anti-Semitic. It's despicable. It's disgusting. That professor is 100% correct. And that sort of hate speech and anti-Semitism, she should be kicked out of that university, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, what can be worse than that? If you held up a sign and you went to a university that said, I hate black people, or I hate white people, and you used some derogatory terms, all black people should burn in hell. What would you say about that person that attends that university? They should be expelled. This student, her name is Callan Zimmerman, should be expelled. Period. It's disgusting and it's a joke. It's a joke. So it gets worse because this type of stuff is happening on campuses throughout the country. We now go to George Mason University, where now it seems like the anti-Semites across the country, or uneducated fools, are trying or are attempting to, and some of them sadly have become successful, at taking down posters of innocent Israeli children, or just innocent people in general in Israel that have been abducted. Some of them sadly have been killed, and all they are posters saying this person is missing, raising awareness. And a couple students at George Mason University that are complete idiots are recorded taking down these posters. Have a listen to this interaction.
What do you know about this?
I'm trying to raise awareness for it, and people have been taking down these flyers. Propaganda.
I mean, clearly, if you don't know it's propaganda, you probably shouldn't be spreading.
Well, can you explain it to me then?
No, I do not want to.
How is this propaganda? Were they not kidnapped?
Okay, so complete idiot calling clearly people that have been abducted, kidnapped as, quote, propaganda. And then when the guy filming this, rightfully so, asked her, explain to me how it's propaganda, she has that stupid laugh of hers and says, I really don't feel like explaining it to you. Well, because she's an idiot. That's why. She's a dumbbell. She's uneducated. She's a moron. And she reads something on social media from a Jew hater, and she believes it to be true. No different than the MAGA morons out there that believe Donald Trump when he says he won the election in a landslide. It's the exact same thing. Listen, you can disagree how the Israeli government is handling this. We can have those kinds of conversations. That's fine. But there's a difference between doing that and just taking down posters of kidnapped Israelis and saying it's fake, it's false, and it's propaganda. Do we understand the difference there? That's what these idiots at some of these universities are doing. It's despicable. And it's disgusting. Then we go to Hunter College. And at Hunter College, a woman is spotted, just like the people were spotted at George Mason University, removing posters of kidnapped Israelis on a telephone pole. And I love the fact that people are recording these people because we need to find out who these people are, and I'll get more to that because some people have lost their jobs because of this hateful behavior, because that's exactly what it is. And listen to this interaction with this dope who just is randomly taking down these posters of innocent Israelis that have been kidnapped. Have a listen to this.
I don't like pigeons. They
Okay.
scare me. I'm sorry, what?
What are you doing?
I'm taking those off.
Okay.
Okay, what is
Where
wrong
are
with you?
What is your name?
Don't mind your business.
What is your
mind
name?
your business.
What is your name? Hunter
Mind your
College
business.
student.
Mind
Okay.
your business.
Okay, you'll be all over the news.
Because you're all over my face. Are you? You're all over my
Raping,
face,
kidnapping,
attacking me. What is wrong with you?
Kidnapped kids.
I'm not. I don't care.
American citizens.
Who
Shame
are
on
you, bro? Shame on you, bro. Why are you
Shame on
screaming?
you.
You're all
She says, mind your business, yet she's the woman who's not minding her business, and she's taking kidnapped kids' photos on these posters and ripping them down and throwing them away, and then she's telling somebody else that's recording her, mind your business. No, ma'am. Mind your business. You're an anti-Semitic, and you're full of hate, and you're ignorant, you're stupid, and you don't understand. I'd say the same thing to someone who ripped down an innocent Palestinian child that is missing or kidnapped. I would say the exact same thing. If somebody that was Jewish did that, I would call them out as well. Where is that happening in this country? Riddle me that. Where is that happening where you see Israeli protests in this country, pro-Israel protests, where they're defending a terrorist group? And don't you give me this nonsense, oh, it's the Israeli government, they're the terrorists. No, they're not. Are there innocent people that have died? Absolutely. But there is no comparison between the Israeli government and what they're doing and what Hamas did. So stop it with the nonsense, because that's fake news. And then we go to the Harvard campus. The Harvard campus, where you're supposed to have some of the most educated and intelligent college students in the world. And we have a Harvard student who is obviously a coward and full of hate because he has a mask over his face. He doesn't want people to recognize him. And he's another person on the Harvard campus taking down posters of innocent Israelis that have been kidnapped. It's mesmerizing because in this statement of this nut job, he actually praises Hamas. Have a listen to this interaction.
I think Hamas should blow the fuck out of Israel. I think they're all dirty, dirty animals.
That's
and
not
they all deserve to
anti-Semitism?
die.
That's not anti-Semitism?
For real, they should be all exterminated.
Thank you.
Every single one of them. And
All
their
right.
kids, their mothers, their children, everybody. Just like Hitler
Thank you
did.
for proving our
Save-
point. Have a
save
lovely night.
ammunition, you know, line
This is somebody who goes to Harvard, who is not only defending Hamas, but is saying that Jews should all be exterminated and kids, mothers, and children should all be murdered. Now, if you attend Harvard, I wouldn't want this person in my class. And if you work at Harvard, find out who this despicable individual is and expel them with no money back. And if you're one of these people's parents, how can you allow this? You have to be embarrassed and shamed at your child, saying that all Jews should be exterminated. And then we go to OnlyFans model, Kayla Goodwin. Now, I didn't know who she was, but apparently she takes off her clothes on OnlyFans, which is fine. Don't have a problem with that. But on her OnlyFans page, her fans that are fans of hers, she's openly defending Hamas. This is somebody with a very large following, and she actually posted a video doing so. This is OnlyFans model Kayla Goodwin. Have a listen to what she had to say.
I do not now, nor will I ever, condemn Hamas. I unequivocally support the liberation movements of all oppressed people around the world by any means made necessary. If you have a problem with that, take it up with somebody else because I don't.
So she basically says, take it up with somebody else because I don't care. She is defending Hamas, and she's calling a terrorist group that invades Israel, rapes women, burns babies alive, beheads people. She is defending that by saying whatever means necessary. OnlyFans needs to take her off their platform immediately. ASAP. Then there's Dr. Hisham Shalan, a professor of Maine engineering at the United States Merchant Marine Academy, who shockingly tweeted a white supremacist meme of Jews controlling every facet of the media. And he's not the only one. There's a lot of other people out there that do that. And then I go to NYU University. There's a woman by the name of Raina Workman. She's an NYU law student who penned a letter of support for Hamas and had her top-tier job.
Hey guys,
had her top-tier job rescinded because of it. Now she's on camera defacing posters of kidnapped Israelis, and we actually have the video and the audio to prove that. This is Raina Workman and her friend, an NYU law student, by the way, ripping down posters. Have a listen to this interaction.
Hey guys, look what they're doing. You guys want to say your name or no?
I don't want to tell you my name.
You guys want to put your name? Really? You guys scared?
I'm not.
At least say your name. If you're gonna do it, do it with pride.
I don't have to.
If you're gonna do it, do it with pride.
I'm very proud. I just don't want to talk to you.
So what's your name? Say it to the whole world. I'll send it to every single firm. Say your name. Look what they're doing. They're doing over these houses signs. The children are dying in Israel. Look what they're doing.
Notice how so many of these people are cowards where they won't say their name. You know, I talk to people on a regular basis that have bigoted views, and they'll share them with me off the air. And then when I say, you know, why don't you talk like this in public, they're cowards because they don't want people to know what bigots they are. That's because they know what they're saying is wrong. They know it's bigoted or anti-Semitic. They shield their face. They don't want to give out their names. But we know who you are. We know who these people are. We know who you are. Like Dr. Yusuf Kamar, a physician in Minnesota, a physician, an educated man who shared a post to his public Facebook page of a Nazi-like, anti-Semitic conspiracy theory of Jews controlling the media. We've also heard this from some far right-wing groups as well, like the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers. It's disgusting behavior, and it shouldn't be tolerated. And this physician should never be entrusted with the care of others. Then there's Zaki Massoud. He's a physician at NYU Winthrop Hospital. And early in October 7th actually, after the Hamas terrorists murdered thousands of people in Israel, raped young women, as I've mentioned, beheaded babies, and burned the elderly alive, Dr. Massoud took to Instagram and labeled this massacre as a liberation, resistance, and revolution. Utterly repugnant and disgusting. And he needs to be called out. And then we go to Binghamton University, where a guy by the name of Jacob Winsnock, he graduated back in 2021, outrageously yelling out that Israel is worse than Nazi Germany. And you can hear some of the students in the background at this rally shocked. Have a listen to this.
Say Israel is worse than Nazi Germany.
How dare you say that? How dare you say that?
Absolutely despicable. These types of statements are happening on college campuses all across the country. And it needs to be called out. These people need to be called out. We need to find out who they are. And we need to send this audio and this video to their employer where they work. And it's working because a lot of these people are getting fired from their jobs. Amen. That's what they deserve. UC Berkeley instructor Victoria Hunt offered her class extra credit this week to attend an anti-Israel event. That professor should be fired and should never be allowed to be on a college campus working ever again. At George Washington University, students were projecting horrifying messages onto a school library building glorifying Hamas terrorists that beheaded some of these babies and killed innocent people. And then at Cornell University, students at Cornell University were told to avoid the kosher dining hall after threats were posted online about killing Jews. This needs to stop. It's unacceptable, it's disgusting, and it should have nothing to do with politics, and it should have everything to do with hatred, bigotry, anti-Semitism, and we all need to call it out. Otherwise, it's only going to get worse. All right, let's take some phone calls, 702-221-7283. And again, that number to call if you'd like to be a part of the conversation, 702-221-7283. Agree, disagree. Happy to take your calls. Again, 702-221-SAVE, 702-221-7283. Let's start off with John. John, what's going on?
Hey, Brian.
What's up, John?
I think it's comical that you present a case that Israel's done nothing wrong.
Never said that. I never said that. So you're wrong. Right. No, you just started off the phone call by saying something that's not true. I'm happy to give you the platform.
I'm glad you admit that, Brian. Bravo.
I'm happy to give you the platform to speak, but when you say something within the first 5 seconds of your call that is not true, I'm going to interrupt you. I have never said on this show, John, and you are lying. I hate to call you a liar, but I do this with the MAGA people every day, and I don't want to put you in that category. But when you start doing that, John, I never said that Israel's done nothing wrong. I never said that.
Palestinians, Israel stole the land from the Palestinians. They need to get
it happened in the early 1940s, John. Those people are dead now. What do you think? They're just going to put their hands up and say, all right, let's get out of here. That's absurd. It happened in the 1940s. That would be like me going to Germany. No, that would be like me going to Germany right now and blaming everybody in Germany for the Holocaust. It's idiotic.
Right. My mother was born before 1948, okay? I know people that were alive before that.
Okay, so if you want to hold those people accountable, then go ahead. But the innocent, if you want to hold those people accountable, if there are anybody left from the 1940s, then so be it. But the people that are being abducted, the kids that are getting their fingers cut off and executed, the fathers that are getting their eyes gouged out, had nothing to do with what happened in the early 1940s. Why can't you admit that?
Did you ever go back and listen to Netanyahu's speech?
Why won't you answer what I just said?
I'm about to. Did you go back and listen to Netanyahu's speech?
What does that have to do with what I just asked you?
Because in Netanyahu's speech, he invoked the reference of Amalek. And if you went back and listened to his speech, you would say, "Why, Netanyahu, why the hell are you bringing up Amalek?" Because Amalek says when somebody hurts Israel, the reference to Amalek is you go kill them, you kill the man, you kill the woman, you kill the child, and you kill all their animals.
Well, guess what? I want every Hamas individual to be killed. I am totally okay with that, and that's who he is referencing. He's not referencing innocent Palestinians that didn't do anything to Israel. He's specifically referencing Hamas and terrorists that want to kill as many innocent Jewish people as possible, and I support that statement 100%.
And that includes women and children. You're okay with that?
If you have a woman that is a terrorist or that has harbored terrorists, if you have a woman that has killed innocent people or has harbored terrorists that kills innocent people, I don't care what you have between your legs.
So Palestinian infants, they're terrorists too.
Did I say that? Did I say that? Are you listening to my language? John, here's the problem. You're not listening to me. I'm trying to listen to you. John, listen. What I'm saying is very important. If a woman is harboring a terrorist, helping a terrorist kill innocent people, she deserves to die. I never said a child deserved to die. In fact, I would say the contrary. I don't care whether you're a man or a woman. If you not only support Hamas, but you help fund them and or assist them in the killing of innocent people, then yes, they deserve to die. Why would you disagree with that?
At this moment in time, when the world is a powder keg, it's outrageous that this fraud, this fascist, Benjamin Netanyahu, would make a reference to Amalek in this speech to the world.
What do you disagree with what I said?
I called today, Brian. Let's do some math. Can we do some math today?
Before we do math, I would like you to tell me what you disagree with what I have said in answering your questions. What have I said specifically that you disagree with? You think if a woman harbors Hamas and helps the terrorists kill innocent Jews, that she deserves to be alive?
I think Israel has every right to exterminate Hamas. What they did was horrific.
So what do you disagree with me on?
I think because Netanyahu in this speech, look, man, everybody knows who Netanyahu is. He's a fraud.
Everybody doesn't know who Hamas is.
It's a land. Let me just complete a thought.
Well, you're not answering.
He's after the land. This is all crap he's putting forward. He's going to commit war crimes, and he referenced Amalek in the Bible, and that says when somebody hurts Israel, you get retribution, man. You kill man, woman, infant, and all their animals.
I understand you're not a fan of Netanyahu, but here's what I find a little bit problematic and quite frankly disappointing, John, when you call in. I just gave you a number of examples of pure hatred and evil in this country, pure anti-Semitism. And the first thing you don't say is, gosh, that's horrible, Brian. I just heard those clips. I don't support that. We should be against any Islamophobia or anti-Semitism. That's not what you say. You start off the conversation by going after Israel, and I think that some of your own personal issues that you have with Jewish people. That's my opinion.
Don't project on me.
I'm not projecting. I'm being honest.
Okay. You want to know what my personal issue is, Brian? I'll tell you my personal issue right now, okay? Boys and girls, get out your pencils and papers, okay? We're going to do some math, all right? There's a $14 billion aid to Israel package on the table right now, okay? Israel is the size of New Jersey, okay? It's about 8,500 square miles. It has the population similar to New Jersey. It's about 9 million people, okay? So we're talking about a country similar in size and population as Israel, okay? To date, we have given, the United States of America has given Israel $300 billion in aid, okay? And there's another $14 billion on the table right now. So all told, all in, it's $314 billion to 9 million people, okay? This $14 billion package breaks down to $1,527 per person. Over the $314 billion, that's $33,564 per Israeli. Okay? That is outrageous. Israel treats America like its personal ATM. Benjamin Netanyahu's on tape saying that he can play America like a fiddle. I want to stop having Israel carte blanche, unlimited, unfettered access to the United States Treasury. I think that's wrong.
All right, you're entitled to your opinions, but I think you have issues with the Jewish people because, and I think
you twisted it.
Here's why. Here's why. No, I'm not twisting it. Here's why. Again, I'm going to repeat what I said earlier because you still have not even spoken to this, and it's disturbing. I started this segment off in talking about the rise of anti-Semitism hate crimes and people at universities across the country that are despicable.
Okay.
And you don't even mention it or say, "Gosh, Brian, that's terrible." You immediately interject in attacking Netanyahu and Israel, and I find that very
Can I
disturbing.
answer the question, and will you let me get more than one sentence out before you jump
I just
jump
let
in?
you spoke for 5 minutes, so you don't have to be self-righteous. Answer that.
Okay. Israel stole the Palestinians'
There you
land
go
to
again.
create-
Why won't you address
Well, I mean,
anti-Semitism
I can
in this
put more than
country?
one thought together.
Because you're not responding to what I just said, John. You're not responding to what I just said. I know you're anti-Israel. I know you're anti-Israel. You don't listen.
Let me finish.
No, no,
finish.
pot him down. No, you're not going to finish. You're going to let me talk now because it's my show and not yours. I've given you the platform. I know you're anti-Israel. I know that. I know you're anti-Netanyahu. I know that. I've now asked you 4 times to call out anti-Semitism in this country, and you refuse to do so. What would you say to somebody that refuses to call out anti-Semitism? There's a word for it, John, and I'm starting to think you're in that category. I will now ask you for a 5th time. I'm now asking you for a 5th time, and it's the last time I'm going to. I know your opinions on Israel. I know your opinions on Netanyahu. You've already expressed those. I'm asking, no, I'm going to ask you a question, and you could either do one of 2 things. Either not answer it again, or I'm going to hang up on you. Yes, I will.
You're a
Now,
coward.
no, I'm not a coward. I believe you're anti-Semitic. I think you're anti-Semitic.
I'm going to string 3 thoughts together, and I'm going to answer your question.
I'm going to pod you down, and I'm going
If
to
you'll
answer the
let-
question, and I want you to answer it directly, and I don't want to hear about your opinions on Netanyahu or Israel. Yes or no? What are your thoughts on all those audio clips that I played of people tearing down pictures of innocent Israelis that have been kidnapped? What are your thoughts on that? Answer the question.
They're kids. Did some of them act improperly?
They are not kids. These are also adults. You are 100% wrong. I also played clips of adults, people that are not only in college, but people that are in their 30s and 40s.
You're a coward. Grow some
All right,
balls and let
okay,
me talk.
okay. No, goodbye. Have a nice day. You're the coward, and I believe you're anti-Semitic. Ladies and gentlemen, we just heard from an anti-Semite in real time. You could have your opinions on Israel. You could have your opinions on Netanyahu. That's okay. We can have disagreements on that. But I now asked him 5 times to call out anti-Semitism. Did you hear what he just said? He didn't even call it out. He said, those are kids. Oh, it's okay. Those are kids. First of all, when you're a college student, you shouldn't be allowed to spread hateful rhetoric and anti-Semitism. John couldn't even say that on the air. What would you say about somebody like that? You're the coward, and I believe you're anti-Semitic. As I would say the same thing for somebody who spread propaganda about innocent Palestinians that have been killed or kidnapped. I would say the exact same thing. John showed his anti-Semitism in that phone call. All I wanted to hear from him was the obvious, that anybody that's not anti-Semitic would say, regardless of your thoughts on Israel and the territory that they have. All I wanted to hear from John was, yeah, those people are wrong. They shouldn't be tearing down those posters. It's spreading hate and it's anti-Semitic. John couldn't even say that. You're the coward, John. And I think you have issues with people who are Jewish, because the fact that you couldn't even call out that hatred and bigotry and you use the excuse of, oh, they're just kids, tells me what you think about Jewish people. You're the coward. 702-221-7283 is the number to call. And again, that number to call, 702-221-7283. Let's go to Henry. Henry is next. What's up, Henry?
boy. So I got a question for you, Brian. Who is marching out there? Is it those horrible Republicans?
Say that again. Come again.
Who's out there marching? Who's supporting
in regards
Republicans?
In regards to, okay, so you're talking about are Republicans or Democrats spreading anti-Semitism?
Yeah, like you do all the time. But now that it's the Democrats,
okay,
you're in the corner and you can't call them out.
Okay, so here's where you're wrong, and I'm
okay.
So now, are you going to let me answer now, or are you just?
Why do you have an Occupy Democrat page?
Are you gonna let me continue and answer your
why
question?
Do you
sir,
have an Occupy Democrat page?
Would you like to have a conversation, or are you just going to interrupt me?
Yeah, let's have a conversation.
Okay, that means now that you be quiet and you let me answer. Is that fair? Is that okay with you, Henry? Thank you so much. On this show, I have time and time again called out Rashid Tlaib and Ilhan Omar. And I've even taken it a step further because I believe they are both anti-Semitic. I do. And I've said that on the show. But I've also said that Hakeem Jeffries and the Democrat leadership.
Have you
let me finish. Shut up and let me finish. Otherwise, I'm going to hang up on you. You don't interrupt me. You asked me a question. Now I'm answering it. And guess what, sir? I'm not done yet because I'm proving that you're a fool and you're a liar. Now I'll start over again without hanging up on you. Don't interrupt me again. I've called out Ilhan Omar. I've called out Tlaib because I believe they're anti-Semitic and they have hatred towards Israel. Number two, I've called out Democrat leadership. I want to hear from Hakeem Jeffries. Call out members of his own party. So you are 100% wrong when you say I have only called out one side of the aisle or I haven't called out Democrats because I've done it on this show and I just did it now. So now that we've proven that you're a liar and you don't know what you're talking about, what other stupid comment do you want to make?
Hello?
Hello?
Yeah,
Hello?
I also thought, never.
Hello? Hello?
Yeah, so how come you avoided the subject all week?
Again, you're lying again because you're a moron. I've called out Tlaib and Ilhan Omar multiple times. I do it every day on this show, and I just did it just now. So now we've proven that you're an idiot. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Yeah, how much do you make a year?
Okay. What do you do for a living, sir? What do you do for a living? How much do you make a year? The guy calls in, and I'm proven to be a liar and a moron. He calls into the show. I prove that he's an idiot and he doesn't know what he's talking about because I've also called out the left and I've called out the squad. And then after I prove that he's an idiot, he says, how much do you make a year? Hey, sir, none of your goddamn business how much money I make a year, even though I probably make a lot more than you do. And by the way, I don't listen to your show. I don't listen to you. I don't follow you. You follow me and you listen to my show. 702-221-7283. And again, the number to call if you want to be a part of the conversation, 702-221-7283. Let's go to Patrick, who is next on Pushing the Limits.
Good afternoon, Brian.
Good afternoon, Patrick. What's going on?
Well, I've been listening to you for the last couple of weeks now. We've spoken a couple of times on the phone. I've heard you you have referred to Benjamin Netanyahu as a madman. I believe. I think you referred to
you're wrong. I've never said that.
I've
never said that I believe Benjamin Netanyahu is a bad man. So again, that's misinformation.
A madman. You said you said a madman.
Never said that Benjamin Netanyahu is a madman either. So we're off to a very bad start because you've now claimed that I've said something that I've never said on or off the air. So let's move past that and let's continue.
Okay, but so do you consider yourself Jewish or do you consider yourself atheist? I believe you said you were atheist.
Completely. First of all, do you ever say anything that's true? First of all, I've never claimed to be atheist. Number two, this has no bearing on the conversation. What do you care what my religion is? And by the way, I've never said I'm atheist. I'm not. I do believe in God. What does my religion have to do with this conversation? Can you get to the point of why you called?
I'm trying to understand your political leanings. You say you're an independent. You're not a Democrat. You're not a Republican. I believe that you're just a collectivist. You're an authoritarian collectivist.
What are you talking about? Have you ever heard? What are you talking about? First of all, what is my religion to point me in a corner and say I must be from this party because I'm this religion is idiotic? That's number one. Number two, I've always been a registered independent. I voted for Republicans and Democrats. You want to know how I vote, sir? I start by voting for somebody that is a decent human being. If you're a decent person, then you have my attention, and then I might vote for you. Why is that so hard to understand? I've never said Benjamin Netanyahu is a madman. I've never said that, and I've never said I'm an atheist. I don't know why you would misquote me. I'm happy to have a conversation with you, and it's okay if we disagree, but please don't misquote me or my views. I think that's a fair thing to ask of you, Patrick.
All right. Yeah, no, that's very fair. But have you had an opportunity to look at any of the history of Hamas? We've spoken about Hamas a number of times.
Absolutely, and the history is blatantly obvious. Since the 1980s when they were formed, they have been a terrorist organization that has no care for human life, whether it's their own people, whether it's Palestinians or Israelis. And they're proving it right now, and they have used Palestinians as human shields. So yes, Hamas, without questions.
Does it concern you, Brian, that it was Carter that went over there in 2006 and oversaw the election and confirmed that Hamas did win? And that Benjamin Netanyahu many a times has said that part of their foreign policy is to prop up and boost up Hamas.
Okay,
to
so here's the
divide
way I would answer that question, because I don't know what you're referring to, but here's the best way I can.
That's amazing to me,
Okay, so
Brian,
here's
how
the
you
best
could not
way.
know
Are you going to let
something
me?
that's fundamentally
Okay, you got to
true
let me.
as that.
You got to let me finish. I haven't finished
No,
answering
that's like
yet.
saying you didn't
I
know
haven't.
that Bin Laden was
I haven't
funded by
finished.
the CIA.
I
and how-
haven't. Okay, so let me know when I can answer your question. Okay, you can disagree with the way I answer it. That's fine, but I'm going to answer it the way I want to.
Do you agree that Bin Laden was a CIA asset?
Let's go to that first question first, because you didn't allow me to finish answering the question. Anybody. It could be an American. It could be the president of Israel. It could be anybody. If anybody has shown any support for Hamas in any way, shape, or form, it's repugnant, it's wrong, and we have to call it out. I cannot be more clear to you than that. There is no question that I'm afraid of answering. Okay? That's the way I would answer that question. Now, what was your question about Osama bin Laden?
Would you agree that Osama bin Laden was funded and propped up by the CIA and the United States government, like Israel propped up Hamas?
It has not been proven that Al-Qaeda was funded by the United States of America. That is a conspiracy theory, and there is no evidence. Now, you could say the Afghanistan government, and there are governments that have been funded by the United States of America, but that does not mean that the United States funds terrorists. So, no, I would not agree with that.
Okay, Brian, is there any official statement, official narrative that comes out of the Pentagon or the United States government that you don't believe? Anything?
Okay, so now you're making a generalized question and claiming that because I do not believe that the government funded Al-Qaeda, that I must believe everything from the government. The answer is no. I don't believe everything from the government. I believe, well, I can go to 9/11. I believe that they got a lot more warning signs that this was going to happen than they led us to believe. Now, I don't think that's because they wanted 9/11 to happen, but it was a failure from our own CIA and our intelligence. That's a perfect example of what I can tell you. Do I think our government is always honest? Absolutely not. Do I always trust our government? Absolutely not. But I am not going to sit here and say that 9/11 was an inside job, and I'm not going to sit here and say that, our government funds Hamas, because we don't.
Okay, well, just something that's very alarming about the stands in which you believe. I believe
What's alarming?
You have much more in common with Sean Hannity and Ron DeSantis.
Okay, give me an
than
example.
You give yourself
Give me an example.
Well, like this outrage about these college students and these professors saying what they're saying. I think it's
you support it.
I do not agree with what they're saying.
Okay, so we agree then. So how am I wrong? So we agree then. How am I wrong?
Because you can't punish people for their speech. Ron DeSantis did.
Actually, you have no idea. Okay, let me explain to you why you're wrong, sir. Nope, let me explain to you why you're wrong. Actually, you can. The government cannot interfere with freedom of speech. But if they hold on, no, you don't. No. You need to listen to me. Because you just said something about me that is not factually accurate, and I'm now responding to that. If somebody on a college campus spreads hate and bigotry, the university has the right to expel them if it doesn't represent the values of the university, or a college professor who says something or does something that is wrong. The college has the right to fire you, and that has nothing to do with freedom of speech, and it has everything to do with private.
Hey, Brian, I agree with you. You're right. You're right.
So where am I wrong? Tell me.
Ron DeSantis did sign a law in Florida that bans all anti-Semitism. I think that's wrong. I think anti-Semitism is wrong, just like I think being in the KK is wrong. But in a free society, people can walk around with a sheet over their head and have whatever views they want to have.
Do you understand? Okay, here's the fundamental difference that, Patrick, with all due respect, you're not understanding. And I'm going to repeat it again because I'm not sure you're listening to me, and I'm going to try to
You repeat yourself every day.
Okay, you
Brian.
don't, and Patrick, you don't listen. Freedom of speech pertains to the government. It doesn't mean you could say whatever you want, whether it be social media or on a college campus if you're attending that school.
Do you agree with DeSantis making it illegal to be have anti-Semitism speech?
I would have to specifically look at the bill and look at exactly what is in that bill.
Well, that's exactly what you're saying is illegal, is government instituting regulation over speech. That's exactly what happened.
That's not what I'm saying, and I'm still waiting for what I've said that you think is so wrong that you would compare me to Sean Hannity, who is a propagandist. I'm still waiting.
Yes, and I believe you have a lot in common with him because both of y'all agree on Ukraine.
That's
both
a very
of y'all
intelligent
agree on,
statement. Okay, yeah, you're right. I have a lot in common with Sean Hannity because I want Ukraine to win the war. Thank you for the call, Patrick. I appreciate that. That's a very, very intelligent take. I'm just like Sean Hannity with my views because I want Ukraine to win the war. That's a great take, Patrick. Thank you so much for the phone call. Holy smokes. Who do we got? 702-221-7283 is the number to call. And again, that number, 702-221-7283. I don't spread right-wing propaganda or left-wing propaganda on this show. I never have, and I never will. I don't do that. I never have. And for somebody to compare me to Sean Hannity because I want Ukraine to win the war is probably the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. And we had another caller who called in and said, I've never called out Democrats for anti-Semitism. Blatant lie. Not only did I do it right after he said that, but I do it on this show every day, and I've called out members of the squad. So he's a liar. And then when I called him out on his stupidity and lies, his next question is, how much do you make per year? Because he's an idiot. And then we had John who called in. I'm happy to have a conversation with people that do not think Israel should exist. Obviously, I would disagree with you on that, but I'm happy to have that conversation. That's a disagreement. But when you fail to call out anti-Semitism, and you fail to call out the behavior and the posters and things that I've talked about on this show and played some of that audio, which John failed to do. I asked him 5 times to call it out. I asked him 5 times. And that has nothing to do with the money that we're sending to Israel or your opinions on Netanyahu. That's a separate entity. It's very simple. I started this segment talking about anti-Semitism and some of the anti-Semitism in this country and taking down signs and ripping down signs. John not only failed to call that out and call those people out, but then he made an excuse for them and said they're just kids. So it's okay if someone shows anti-Semitism. They're just a kid if they're 19, 20, 21 years old. And by the way, there are people in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s that are taking down posters as well. It's not just college students. But I find it interesting that when it's taking down pictures of Israelis, oh, they're just kids. I find that very, very interesting. 702-221-7283 is the number to call. But I'm the coward because I call out hatred and bigotry. Again, it's the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. Let's go to Gary. Gary is next on Pushing the Limits. What's up, Gary?
Hey, Brian. I'm going to weigh in and put my 2 cents worth in.
Okay.
This is bigger than anti-Semitism and hate. You see, there's a breakdown of knowledgeable people, and you can have differences of opinion and stuff. But being when you went to Stony Brook University, I used to live right down the street from there.
Yep.
Which has nothing to do with anything. But it's just that, like, when I lived in Queens, there was different Jewish sections, and there were liberal Jews. There were Jews that didn't even practice, but they admitted they were Jews, or didn't even think Israel was a good idea, that it would be nothing but trouble. And there's different, just like there's different, Christians that differ, about a lot of things.
Gary, and Gary, I agree with you. You know what's really disappointing, Gary, and I'm being totally honest, and if they were ripping down posters of a Palestinian family or a child that was kidnapped, I'd be saying the exact same thing, right?
I know that much about you.
I really would. I mean, it's horrible, right? I don't want innocent Palestinians dying any more than I want innocent Israelis dying. It's
You're
terrible.
walking a tight wire. All right, I'll make my point. This is my point.
Yes.
I consider a lot of stuff that everyone's going through emotional and brainwashing. I don't know if that's too harsh a word. I'm not saying religion is brainwashing, but there are people in this country, I guess, especially in this world, that brought up a certain way to think, and they can never shake it. And none of us are perfect.
Right.
No, I know that I'm not.
Sure.
John was definitely not perfect. I think he's having some mental breakdowns lately. Personally, we have our issues.
Listen, we agree and we disagree on some things, but it's like when you're not even willing to call out hatred and bigotry, regardless of what your position is on Israel.
A double standard.
Right,
a lot of
exactly. Gary, you hit the nail right on the head. It's a double standard. Gary, it's good to hear from you.
Have a good day.
Thank you, Gary. You too, my friend. I really appreciate that. All right, 221-7283 is the number to call. Let's take one more call before we go to break, and let's go to Ryan. Ryan, what's going on?
Hey, Brian. I am the son of a Muslim and a Jew from Israel.
Gotcha.
I come from a Jewish family,
Yep.
and I also have Pakistani Muslims in my family.
Mm-hmm.
And I have lived in Israel.
Yep.
And the anti-Semitic attacks, they're disgusting.
Thank you. Thank you for
They
saying that.
They really are.
It's a breath of fresh air that, you would admit that, because as you know, Ryan, a number of calls that I've had this segment, people are not even willing to admit that, and it's disturbing.
Yeah, well, it's disgusting. But there are a few points that I wanted to make and just ask you.
Sure. I got about 2 minutes for you, so go ahead, Ryan. Be my guest.
Okay. So don't you think that since there have been over 1,000 people killed, I believe, on October 7th,
mm-hmm.
and as of right now, close to 9,000 people have been killed in Gaza.
Right.
45 to 50% of those are children. It seems to me, and don't get me wrong, I do want Hamas to be extinguished from this earth, and I'm glad their leaders are being killed.
Yep.
But at the same time, I don't believe they should be bombing indiscriminately just civilian targets.
So let me respond to that. I hear what you're saying. Fundamental differences. Number one, last I checked, Israel's not kidnapping anybody, raping people, and beheading people, number one. Number two, innocent people dying, it's horrible. I don't want to see that on either side. But when the Israeli government says you need to go south, you need to get out of the area because we need to get these people in Hamas, and I'm trying to simplify this, and it is very complex. And then when Hamas is trapping them and saying they can't go anywhere, what is Israel supposed to do? No attacks? I mean, listen, I don't want innocent people to die any more than you do. Could be Palestinians, could be Israelis. But there's a fundamental difference, in my opinion, compared to what Hamas did and what the Israeli government is doing. Does that make sense?
It does. It does.
Hey, I'm with you. I'm with you. This is a tragedy. I mean, I had a 24-year-old UNLV student in here who lost 5 members of his family who grew up in Gaza. My heart breaks for him. There are no winners here. But if we're just going to be killing each other out there because of something that happened in the 1940s that you disagree with, there's never going to be peace. There has to be a 2-state resolution, and it's better for the Palestinian people and it's better for the Israeli people. We have to get rid of Hamas.
I wholeheartedly agree. And one other point I wanted to make, though, is I have been listening to unbiased news, independent reports,
right,
for the stats and the news, and I feel that a lot of these people who are marching and saying "Free Palestine," they with their hearts, some of them might think it's what happened on October 7th. There might be justification for that, whatever. I think that's horrible.
I think it's a number of things, Ryan. You tell me whether you disagree or not, and then we got to take a break. But I think it's a number of things with these people. Sometimes some of these people that are going to these rallies are uneducated. They're misinformation on Twitter and social media. That's number one. Number two, some of these people might be really good people, and they care about, people in Palestine. I have absolutely no problem with that. But they're putting the hatred in the wrong direction. Number three, some of these people, without a shadow of a doubt, defend Hamas or are not willing to call out Hamas. I've had a few phone calls of people that are not even willing to call out this type of bigotry and hatred. So there's different kinds of people. I don't want to generalize them all as having one train of thought. The bottom line is, whether it's Islamophobia or anti-Semitism, as Americans, you sound like a pretty smart guy. We just got to call it all out. And if people are tearing down posters of innocent Israelis that are kidnapped, we need to video them. We need to find out who they are, send it to their employer. Because in this country, the United States of America, we cannot tolerate that.
I agree with you. It's just
Ryan,
the Islamophobia is disgusting as well.
Absolutely. And we had to deal with that after 9/11. And guess what? I was defending the people of the Islam faith because it was wrong then and it's wrong now, just like we have people out there that are anti-Semitic. They're both wrong. They're awful. And as Americans, it's our job to call it both out. Ryan, I do appreciate your call, my friend, and appreciate your thought. Thank you so much. All right, here's what we're going to do. We are going to take a quick 60-second break. And when we come back, I know Real Kid Poker Daniel Negreanu is used to being asked questions about poker, but this might be a different interview. I'm going to ask him about a lot of other different things in the world, like what's going on in Israel. We'll take a quick break. He'll be joining us next right here on Pushing the Limits.
Hey everybody, are you struggling to find a pizza place that reminds you of Brooklyn? That true blue New York style pie? Well, worry no more. Stallone's Italian Eatery Pizza is a knockout. We're located at 467 East Silverado Ranch Boulevard, just off of Premier Road, half a mile east of South Point Casino, just minutes from the Las Vegas Strip. Come by and grab a slice of pie. Plus, check out our Brooklyn-inspired Italian cuisine. Our sandwiches are super. Hero, that is. Because why be a sub when you can be a hero? Stallone's Italian Eatery is here to serve you phenomenal food, Vegas. Forget about it.
As a 3-time international award-winning restaurant, Joe's New York Pizza uses only the freshest and best available ingredients. From giant slices of hand-tossed pie to calzones, strombolis, fingers, and wings, Joe's serves all your favorites. Stop in for a slice at one of their 2 Las Vegas locations at Paradise and Harmon or South Las Vegas Boulevard, or you can check out their menu at joesnewyorkpizzalv.com.
The National Atomic Testing Museum is a national science, history, and educational institution that tells the story of America's nuclear weapons testing program at the Nevada Test Site. Located at 755 East Flamingo Road, just east of Paradise, the museum offers immersive, interactive experts for guests of all ages. The museum is Smithsonian certified and open 7 days a week. For more information, visit nationalatomictestingmuseum.org. That's nationalatomictestingmuseum.org.
All right, welcome back. It is Pushing the Limits on a very busy news day, Wednesday. Thank you so much for joining us. As I mentioned, Congressman Seth Moulton will be joining us on the show tomorrow. Looking forward to speaking to him. But, we haven't had this guy on in a long time. I grew up watching him play a lot of poker, that's for sure. One of the best poker players in the world, has been for decades, and happy to be having him back on the show with me. Real Kid Poker Daniel Negreanu joining us. Daniel, always having you on, my friend. How are you?
In the new house. We're in the process of moving over here to Lake Las Vegas, and it's just beautiful here.
Cool. Well, congratulations on that. And, I always like to start off the segment before we get to some probably more important issues other than poker. But I know you had put something on your Twitter page that said that you've probably played too much poker over the last year. You're getting a little bit older, and maybe your focus, I'm kind of generalizing what you said, wasn't what it used to be. To the poker community out there and to poker fans out there, can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Yeah. So like when I was in my early 20s, there were sessions where I would play for 24, 36, maybe even 48 hours straight without a break. But as you get older, your ability to play well when you're fatigued lessens. And I found myself this year, because I had some side bets on the Poker Go Tour, just playing too much poker without enough breaks. I do my best when I have like a month off. I don't play any poker, look forward to it. And then when I sit down, there's no place I'd rather be. When you play every day for long periods of time, you start to go through the motions a little bit and then maybe not play your best.
So it maybe not be age just as much as maybe you're just playing too much. Is that kind of what I'm getting?
It's a combination of both. I think, when you're younger, you have the stamina to play, really, really late. But I notice for myself, when I'm tired, it's very difficult for me to make like the proper decision in the moment in very intricate spots. Whereas as soon as it's over, I walk on the way home. I'm like, duh, should have done that.
All right. So let me ask you this: to a professional poker player who, let's just say he's a cash game player, he's got to put in the hours, and it's more than 40 hours a week, and he has no choice. He plays poker to make a living. He's not very financially secure, and he has to play long hours. He can't take a break like somebody that's so established like you. What advice, Daniel, would you give to somebody like that?
Well, it's difficult, right? Because I believe that when you are young, that is the time to strike while the iron is hot, and put in as many hours as you possibly can. I think, everyone's different. So you sort of have to monitor yourself. Like when you show up, are you enjoying yourself? And if you're not, I do think you can take breaks, like they don't have to be long 1 month long breaks, but maybe 2 days off. Like every normal person takes a couple days off work here and there, and you shouldn't be any different as a poker player.
Have you had times in your career where you got into a car and you're heading to a poker game and you just didn't want to be there? You didn't want to get up. You didn't feel like playing poker?
Many times. Yeah. When I'm part of a series, like, at the Poker Go studio, they do these series. And sometimes I'm just, the monotony of it. I'm like, oh, you know what? I'd much rather just stay home today. My wife, Amanda, says, well, why don't you? And I was like, because I got to play. I got to go play, So I'm always going to show up and I'm always going to play. But I'm also very cognizant of the fact that I'm not always going to have my A game.
I know this might seem bizarre, but I feel like when people are happy in their private life and things are going good, I think they play better poker. I feel the same way about sports. Like when a professional athlete, maybe they just got married or something good, good things are happening in their personal life, they usually perform better on the field or the court. I feel the same way with poker. I feel like if someone's running really good in the World Series of Poker, right, and they win a couple bracelets early in the World Series of Poker, I feel like they're playing better and they're more successful. I think when people win multiple bracelets, that's not a coincidence. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, there's so much to that, in terms of confidence. And you could, like you said, you reference sports. Like you look at a goalie, for example. All of a sudden, a goalie's playing amazing, standing on his head. He's the greatest goalie of all time. Then all of a sudden, he can't stop a beach ball. And a lot of that is mental. And with poker, there are so many ancillary things aside from the study of the game. Like you said, having your life in order, happiness outside there. Are you distracted by things going on at home? Are you feeling confident in the decisions? Are you allowing a bad streak to make you play worse? So there's so much self-management required to be a professional poker player. It's a lot more difficult, I think, than most who say, oh, I want to do that. I'm like, well, it takes a lot of hard work and a lot of fight and a lot of discipline.
So the last question about this I wanted to ask you is, so what do you plan on doing in the future now? It sounds like maybe you've played a little bit too much poker over the course of the last year. What are you going to be doing now for the next year? I mean, have you learned anything from the last year that you're going to take and say, okay, maybe I'm just not going to play as much?
It's simple. Like before last year, I didn't play a lot. I haven't done this in years, right? I hadn't done this since like my late 20s and stuff like that. But this year I decided to put in a lot of volume for this bet. And I'm like, just going to go back to what I normally do, which is, play the World Series hard, take a couple trips here and there, but I'm not going to be, a slave to every series that's even here in Las Vegas.
Right. That's probably a good decision, and you don't have to. Maybe we'll be seeing you at some more Vegas Golden Knights games. I want to talk about that in a little bit. Before we get to that, there's a lot of crazy things happening in the world, and we were texting each other a little bit yesterday and talking about it, and it's mesmerizing to me, Dan. One thing I always appreciate about you is you don't always talk about poker. You talk about social issues on social media, and you're not afraid to share your opinions, as am I. What do you make of the world that we're living in right now and the divide that we have politically? What's going on in the Middle East and the fighting on social media? I mean, what you do for a living, you have to have your social media, right? It helps you, and me, but like, what do you make of what's going on in the world and why are we at where we're at today in 2023?
Well, there are a lot of reasons, as you said, and, it is very sad what's happening now. You think of the Holocaust and people say, well, that would never happen again. But we're sort of seeing people bombarding a Jewish plane and a guy getting off the plane and just being, bombarded by a mob of people. You talk about social media, and here's the thing, we have to sometimes look at, forget about the messenger. Let's look at the message. Trump said, let's get rid of TikTok and make it illegal. He was right. He's 100% right on that. He is, because, and there are laws. There is a precedence for this in the United States. There are laws against foreign entities owning media companies here. Now, why is this so important? Why is TikTok different than everything else? TikTok is Chinese owned. China is allied with Russia. Russia is invading Ukraine. Russia wouldn't mind a little bit of a distraction right now. Well, guess what? Their other ally is Iran, right? So what you're seeing, and this is the scary thing, they did a poll on kids in America, 18 to 24, asked if the actions of Hamas were justified. 51% of these children said yes, it was justified. And now think about how horrific that was on October 7th. And the reason for that is their algorithms, their number one news source is TikTok. That's where they get their news. That's where you go. That's why you see so many of these radicalized kids in schools. They don't know what they're saying. When those kids in San Francisco are walking down the street saying, from the river to the sea, like they don't have any idea what they're talking about. They're literally talking about the extermination of the Jewish people.
Right.
So it's really sad what's going on. I don't know that there's an easy out, but I do think that, social media has made things worse. I find myself trying to stay away because it makes my blood boil when I see takes that are equating. I was listening a little bit earlier to one of your callers, equating the two things. Well, it's like, Hamas did some things, Israel did some things. No. Israel left Gaza in 2005. Okay. Who occupies Gaza? That's Hamas. That's who got, who does it. Israel's left them alone since 2005. And Hamas has decided to, not allow for prosperity or anything like that. Then October 7th happened. Women and children and grandparents sleeping in their bed were beheaded and all these disgusting things. What do you expect Israel to do? There is no easy answer, right? And in every time there is war, which is often a path to peace and a liberation of the people, often you have civilian casualties. And that's what we see. But Israel specifically goes out of their way to try to avoid that. But how do you beat an enemy who, A, doesn't care about their people's lives and their own lives because they genuinely believe there will be 40 virgins waiting for them in heaven because they're martyrs? There is no easy solution, but one thing is clear. Hamas has to be obliterated from the earth for any hope for those people in Gaza.
Completely agree with everything you said. And also it's important to note that, as you know, Hamas has infiltrated themselves within the civilians there. So very, very difficult. And, I don't want to see innocent people die on either side here. But at the same time, you're right. What is Israel supposed to do? And listen, I've called out Democrats, and I continue to do so. Members of the squad, Ilhan Omar and Tlaib, I believe them to be despicable. When you, especially Tlaib, and I'm sure you saw this story, Daniel, where she blamed Israel for the bombing at the hospital, when we learned that was Hamas and their own weaponry. But yet she doesn't take down the tweet. I look at Keith Olbermann. He did the same thing, but here's the difference. He apologized. The next day, when it turned out it wasn't Israel that was responsible for that bombing, he said he was sorry. He took it down. He said he'll be better. And I respect that. But somebody like Tlaib, who is an elected official, who continues to keep that tweet up there and blame Israel for everything, I just think these people need to be outed out of office because I think it's despicable, and we all have to call it out, Republicans and Democrats.
Yeah, I think, it's so important. This is the scary thing. I don't want this to be politicized. This shouldn't be politicized, right? What Hamas is doing, that's just what Hamas did. That shouldn't be a left or right issue. Like, you're a liberal, you're supposed to be. It's ridiculous, right? We need to get past that. And like you said, I actually called her out too. I found it despicable that a week later, because what she's doing, and in her district, a Jewish woman who was the head of she was like. She did a lot of work in the community where she was stabbed to death on their stairs. Now, they're not saying there's any connection to that, but like when we talk about inciting violence and we talk about January 6th with Trump and stuff like that, when you leave a tweet up that, you make people angry at Jews. And then you see these, I do not understand what compels someone. You have a mental disorder. If you see a sign with a child that's been kidnapped and you think it's important that you rip that sign down, right? You can be 100% for the rights of the people of Gaza, right? But you also have to have some humanity for both sides. And I don't want to see those people die. But my personal belief is the only way they have liberation and prosperity is to eliminate Hamas, because we've left it to Hamas. They've been there for 20 years. What has happened for those people in a positive way? There's been no more election since. And that's the thing. I feel bad for the children because they didn't vote in Hamas.
They didn't do anything wrong, right? No,
they're the ones that are suffering. But I promise you this, and a lot of people push back and say, well, why don't you see any protests, of the people in Gaza against Hamas? There's an easy reason for that. They'd be killed. They'd be shot dead in the streets. One last thing on this note, you see the term like chickens for KFC, right? It boggles my mind how progressive ideals, which are pro-women, pro-LGBT rights, you can go to Israel, wave, you can do a gay parade, all those kind of things. You try the same thing in the Gaza area, you will be dragged through the streets before being thrown off of a roof, right? Now, that's not to say that you shouldn't care about these people, but let's be real here. There is democracy in that region. That is Israel. That is where you are welcome. The other side, the ideology from Hamas, which is the leadership currently, doesn't like you. They're not going to welcome you. They're not going to thank you for standing with them. They'll kill you first chance they get.
100%. I'm with you. What do you think about this? Because I'm sure you've seen these videos on social media, and I played some of them in the first segment today, where you have even students at Harvard, students across the country. Luckily, it's a minority, but there are students all over the country, as you mentioned, taking down these posters. And then you see people taking videos of them, posting them on social media, finding out who their names are. And a lot of these people are either getting expelled or maybe they're losing their job if they're not attending college. And I'm totally okay with that. And it seems to me that people conflate freedom of speech, which pertains to the government, doesn't mean that your words can't be used against you if you're representing a university or you're a professor or you're a dentist. And it seems like people can't separate the two. Your words do have consequences. Yes, you have freedom of speech, but it doesn't mean that an employer can't fire you. What are your thoughts on that?
I was just going to go down that road too, because you're right. I'm a firm believer in free speech, right? You can say whatever you want. You don't go to jail for these things, right? You can live freely. But if I employ you and you're saying anti-Semitic things or you're pulling down these signs, I have a right to say, you know what? I don't want you representing my country. We talk about quote unquote cancel culture. And I think in some ways, it does run rampant and go wrong. But in a case like this, it's pretty vile, to do these sorts of things. So every company has every right. And like you said, free speech is protected, but that doesn't mean you acting like a buffoon and pulling down signs of kidnapped children and saying, gas the Jews and from the river to the sea, like frees you of any sort of consequence. Freedom of speech doesn't mean freedom of consequence. We have freedom of consequence, as there should be. In some cases, I feel like there should be even more. Like I see some of the stuff, even in the poker world, some of the people talking about this issue. And I'm like, we should ban that person from just playing tournaments because they've said such vile things about it.
Let me ask you, because that's kind of my next question for you. I hate to correlate this to poker, but I want to ask you, Daniel, you're at the poker table, and if you have an individual or multiple people saying offensive things about what's taking place, obviously in Israel, they're talking about politics, whether you agree or not, but they're just saying really despicable things. How do you deal with that as a professional poker player? Do you say anything? Do you keep your mouth shut and just focus on the game? Like, what do you do?
Well, I'll be honest with you, and I'm thankful for this. Those conversations rarely come up at a poker table, and for good reason. It's that old adage, when you're at the Thanksgiving dinner, you don't talk about religion and politics. When you're at a poker table, those subjects probably shouldn't. You talk about how bad this guy played ace king. That's one thing. But to get to the depth of that, what you're going to create is blood boiling. And then, the floor might have to be called, and then everyone needs to settle down and shut up. Because there is a couple people, one specifically, in poker, who I would probably see at a poker table. And if that discussion came up, my blood would boil. And then I would have to make sure that my selfie stick is with me.
Do you mind if I ask you who that is?
I think people in the poker world know. I try not to give him any attention at all whatsoever.
Don't tell me Justin Bonomo.
It rhymes with, it rides by. Okay, you're good. Bravo. But I mean, there's some tweets I've seen where he really thinks that if Netanyahu wasn't involved, Hamas would sit down with the Jewish leadership and they would make peace. Name a Jew in the world. Name one person that Hamas would sit down with, despite the Hamas charter saying that's not the goal. You talk about a two-state solution. They don't want a two-state solution. They want a no-Jew state solution. That is their solution. They're not looking to find a way. They've been offered it 4 to 5, 6 different times since the 1920s. Originally, they were offered 80% of the land. They said no. So there's no. And then he said this one other thing that really just, he made this equation of Hamas should release the hostages and Israel should release their hostages. He's calling prisoners terrorists who they've caught and put in prison. He's equating that to hostages, which is young women and girls from Germany, from France, from the United States that are in a tunnel right now being potentially raped and beaten and all these things. And I'll tell you what, if he was listening, I said, you know what? If you were kidnapped by Hamas, you would pray that the IDF is going to come and save you and bomb them to save your life. You sit in your perch, nice and peaceful, and say, oh yeah, you're equating the two. How dare you have any sort of, thoughts towards what Israel's doing to defend themselves? They react provoked. They don't attack Hamas indiscriminately. They're not attacking any sort of sites just indiscriminately. They're attacking specifically Hamas sites, and they hide right behind the civilians.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but again, this is the same guy that accused you of abusing women. And I think when you threw your selfie stick, he made that World War III, right? So
his brain is broken, frankly. And you know what? So here's the thing. People use the term woke. I don't like the term woke, but it does describe an ideology, right? And when you go down this ideological path, what you end up finding is, some similarities here. And what I found is, when we think of left, right, I think of it more of a circle. Okay. So the center is here. And then when you go around to the far right and the far left, you know what they end up doing? They end up having a common enemy. And it always ends up being the Jews. And why is it the Jews? Why is it the Jews? The Jews, because they've been successful as compared to other people. I think for a lot of, the ideology on the left, it's this idea of white oppressor that is wealthy and military versus the poor brown folk, right? And they view it through that lens. So they're sort of taught to buy into this narrative that the white man, which they consider the Jew, the most oppressed people in history, right, as the evil oppressor, when in fact, what they don't even realize is, like I said, since 2005, there are no Jews there. There are no Jews in any of these Muslim countries. You want to talk about apartheid? Where are the Jews in Libya? Where are the Jews in Iran? Where are the Jews in Lebanon? They don't exist. There used to be hundreds of thousands of them. They've been pushed out, okay? They have one little sliver tiny little population, this tiny little sliver, surrounded by nations that want them obliterated. And you don't want them to defend themselves. If they don't defend themselves, if they put down their weapons, there is no Israel. If Hamas and those around them put down their weapons, there's peace.
What would you say? It's interesting because I had a 24-year-old man who goes to UNLV, and he has family that lives in Gaza. He grew up in Gaza. And I asked him, I said, what percentage of Palestinians believe that Israel should cease to exist? His answer, 100%. He said 100% of Palestinians believe that Israel should cease to exist. It's very difficult for me to have a conversation with somebody like that when they believe that. And then he says, well, how would you feel if somebody invaded your home and took your property? I mean, how would you respond to somebody like that?
So this is the thing, when you get into the historical minutia, right, which I did a couple of years ago, and I dug deep, and I looked back thousands of years to sort of the ownership of the land never actually being called Palestine. There've never been a prime minister of Palestine or a national anthem. That area was ruled by Egypt and Jordan, and before that, the Ottomans and the Romans, and the British, and et cetera, et cetera. So there really is, again, I don't want to offend people by saying so, but, if you look at history, you look at it several ways. Depending on where you start, you're going to come up with a different version. Like his version of the reality is very different than, the actual historic reality of what happened there. So what do I say to him? As I say, Israel has a right to be there. They are the natives to the land. Imagine we told the natives here in America, you're like, no, you're born and raised in this land, but you have to move. Like it's Israel is native to that land. And if you look at the Quran, their holy Mecca is in Saudi Arabia. That is where Mecca is. Only in the Judeo-Christian Bible is Jerusalem mentioned. The word Jerusalem isn't mentioned in the Quran at all. So anyway.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm with you on that. It's just really hard for me to have conversations with people like that. This happened in the 1940s. Most of the people that were responsible for anything that took place there are either dead or very, very old. And the people that are being killed and massacred have nothing to do with it. That's what gets me so. It'd be like if I went to Germany and I blamed everybody right now in Germany for the Holocaust. Now, obviously, that would be ridiculous, right? There are great people in Germany that had nothing to do with that are not anti-Semitic. But
it's no different than you and I being accused of slavery because we share the same skin color as white people who did that.
Exactly. That's a great analogy. And I would add that to it as well. Boy, there's so many other topics to get to with you, Daniel. What do you make of 91 felony indictments that Donald Trump is facing right now? I think most of the country agrees they don't want to see Donald Trump versus Joe Biden. What are your thoughts on that? What are your thoughts of the 91 indictments and just where we're at from a political standpoint right now with the leaders of both parties?
To be honest with you, based on polling and what it looks like, is like the more you just pile on more, make it 300, 400, it actually helps him. It's getting him more positive attention than anything, because now there's the narrative that he's being, attacked as a political prisoner, like it's a banana republic and this sort of thing. So and he just always slides and all this stuff. I've had so many people that have said, we got him. Like, you don't got him. You never got him until you got him. Right. So I don't know, like, This is all all these legalese, these issues are just going to be dragged through the courts for a long period of time. The only question would be is if these, indictments affect the legal process where is he not allowed to run. But either way, I think you're right. I think in that really vast majority of the country doesn't want to see Biden versus Trump. They'd like to see some younger blood. But listen, that looks like what's going to be on the table. When people tell me, I don't like either, so I'm not going to choose. I think it's silly because if there's two paths, I don't like either path. I like one more than I like the other by a little bit. That's the one that I want the one that aligns with my values more so than not.
Sure. And I agree with you on that. I actually, while you said, that Trump might be gaining more popularity, that may be true. I don't know, but I haven't really talked to anybody that voted for Joe Biden in 2020 that said, hey, you know what? I think I like that orange guy. I think I'm going to go Trump 2024. I don't think he's gained support. I think if you voted for him in 2020, you probably will still vote for him in 2024, but Biden won by 8 million votes. And I really feel like if RFK Jr. enters the race, and he has, I guess, as an independent, I think that hurts Trump because I think a lot of the crazy conspiracy theorists that would normally vote for Donald Trump might vote for RFK Jr. I actually think that helps Joe Biden. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
I think it's minimal to non-important. I don't think he's going to get much traction. Neither is the challenger on the Democratic side who apparently has entered, and wants to primary Biden and things like that. But no, unlike you, I've actually heard some people that did vote for Biden that are considering going the other way. And a lot of it has to do with, sort of the extremes. You know, a lot of the people that I know and speak to are what you would consider moderate Republican or moderate Democrat. Right. And, you know, the ultimate question for them is which ideology scares them more. Right. And some of them, like, you know, I've seen some people say this, like they don't like Trump. They don't like the messenger, but some of the message they align with, some of the things they agree with. And I think there are some people on the fence like that, if anything, over the last few years would be more apt to, you know, to side with him. But again, who knows what sort of rhetoric he's going to, you know, come up with during the next year and whether or not that's going to polarize. I imagine it will, because it's kind of his shtick.
I believe, though, Daniel, that when you have all these people that are going to be flipping on him, and they already have, like whether it be Sidney Powell or Mark Meadows, I tend to think, and I know it's a very, very difficult thing to do, to put a former president behind bars, but it seems like every day that goes by, in my opinion, that it seems like there's a better chance that eventually Donald Trump could land himself in jail. Do you disagree with that?
Listen, it's possible, but like I said, that sort of pipe dream that I've been kind of, you know, I'm friends and I'm like, oh, they got him this time. I've learned not to get enthusiastic about this stuff. You know, show me the money, if you will. Like when it's done, great. I'm not going to like hold on to hope that something like that happens, even though it's pretty darn clear, as you said, with so many people flipping on him, that he's guilty of many, many crimes, right?
Right.
He has a way of downplaying these crimes. And there's also the problem of this, right? If you look at Obama, right, his big scandal for a lot of people was he ordered Grey Poupon on a hot dog. He wore a tan suit. He had a coffee in his hand, right? So there's these few little things that they latched onto and were on Fox News for like a week straight, right? With Trump, which thing is it? When someone says, what is it about Trump you don't like? And you're like, oh, wait a minute. Wait, where do I start, right? So it's almost like fatigue, right? You get fatigue over all the different things that he's done, and you can't pigeonhole him, right? With, like, for example, with Hillary, people had emails in Benghazi. That's it. That's what they focus on. With Trump, where do you even start?
Oh, God, it's a long laundry list. And yeah, as far as Benghazi goes, 8 Republican investigations, and they found no criminal wrongdoing there. I want to ask you this, because of all the Republicans that are running, is there anybody out there? Obviously, they're not going to beat Donald Trump, right? But, you know, we had Vivek Ramaswamy on the show last month. I am not impressed by him at all. His poll numbers have continued to drop the last several weeks. And then you have Nikki Haley, who's kind of become the front runner of, some people would say, the vice president to Donald Trump. I don't know if that's going to happen, but is there anybody up there right now that's running for president on the right that you say to yourself, hey, I could maybe see myself voting for that person?
So on Vivek, I think he's batshit. Like, truly, I think what he does is he takes poop and he throws it at the wall to see what'll stick. Like, I don't know. Let me get the racists. Let me get the xenophobes. I don't know. And it's like his ideas are so all over the map. It's like, who are you? What do you know, where do you stand? It's very, very difficult.
He wants to give Putin land. Did you see that interview where he wants to give, ridiculous.
Nikki Haley is doing, which I think she's doing correctly, is trying to center herself more as a moderate as opposed to Trump. It looked as though, you know, sort of like everyone was crowning Ron DeSantis as the next guy. But unfortunately, what you see with politics today, it's not about the job you do. It's not about how good you are. It's about theater. How do you do in debates? He's terrible at that. He's not good at being a politician. Hillary Clinton, I think probably the most qualified person to ever potentially do the job. Not a good politician, okay? Yeah. Probably would have done an amazing job. That's why my belief. But didn't have that charisma and panache or whatever it is. And for love him or hate him, Trump is an entertainer. He's charismatic. You know, when people think of the debates between him and Biden coming up, a lot of people are concerned about that. A lot of people are worried that Biden will look old and meek, even though they're about the same age. And, you know, Trump will just sort of run him over. But as far as the Republicans go, I've watched some of the debates. Like I said, you know, Chris Christie, obviously anti-Trump guy, not much of a chance. None of them have a chance, really. I think at this point, they're just trying to get exposure.
Yeah.
And Vivek is positioning himself as Trump's lapdog. It's
Absolutely.
Just so weird.
When you say Donald Trump is the best president we've ever had in my lifetime, I think it's pretty obvious who he's kissing the ring of. Since you are Canadian, Daniel, do you have like MAGA Republicans, those kinds of people with those types of views about transgenders and LGBT community, so on and so forth? Do you have a lot of people like that in Canada? Because if you do, I don't hear about them.
So here's what you don't know about Canada, right? Canada's not much different than the United States in some ways. We have the major cities, Toronto, Vancouver, Montreal, very progressive, very, you know, left-leaning, if you will, right? But then when you go out into the country, and it's very diverse, by the way. Toronto is the most multicultural city in the whole world. So you couldn't hate anybody because you'd have to hate everybody, right? Now, if you go out to the West and you go to Calgary and Alberta and sort of that's where you sort of have like, you know, farmland and cowboy culture and cowboy country. And we do have sort of a, you know, Trump land there. And again, that's probably more of the rural areas that are not diverse and, have some sort of different views on a lot of the progressive things that, some people are pushing, in some cases too aggressively. A lot of people just want to be left alone, and then they're sort of having things jammed down their throats about, like, the way I use it is this, language adapts, right? But we have to have some grace and we have to have some kindness. 80-year-old guy in Texas has a waitress come up and he says, "Hey, honey, can I get me some more sugar, sweetheart?" Right? Now, calling him a sexist, feminine, he has no ill intent, right? So intent should matter. And I do think sometimes when we move too quickly in certain areas, the pushback is there because people are like, hold the phone. I've been speaking this way for 60 years. And now you're telling me this means this and this means this, and I have to change the way I speak English. You have to be patient with people before you shove it down their throats.
Yep. No question about that. All right. Since we only have about 8 more minutes here, I do want to talk a little Vegas Golden Knights hockey with you, the Stanley Cup champions. They're winning. They're winning a lot of games. Do you have any concerns with this team this year and anything that would lead you to believe that maybe they shouldn't be one of the favorites to win the Stanley Cup this year?
They look really good. I'll tell you what, I mean, another year of Cassidy's system. He's done such a great job of utilizing the talent that he has. And I still think that, defensively, our six is as strong as any six. They're big, they're mobile. Our bottom two, whether it's Hague and Whitecloud or whoever, when they're injured, very, very deep. I think they've done a great job of sort of reassigning the lines to add depth. Instead of doing, I think a lot of people will copy this. Instead of doing like your top line is your best 3 players, your second best 3 on your second line, he does it in pairs where he splits them, puts 2 on each line with a sidekick. So Riley Smith is obviously the only omission from last year. And I think they're grooming to some degree Brett Howden to play that role because he's sort of a coach's dream. He's not highly skilled, but he does what he's told, and he's a safe guy to have out there. So if they stay healthy, of course, Mark Stone is a very important figure there. We have 2 goalies that are competent, and all you need to be in this system is competent, and your numbers will shine. And we're seeing that already. So, I mean, pretty impressive, frankly, to not have a hangover after, winning a cup and, going deep almost every year, except for the year before they didn't make the playoffs.
And their only losses to this far as to the Chicago Blackhawks in overtime. They've seen quite a few overtime games recently. They've been a lot of fun, but they're clutch. They're winning a lot of overtime games and shootouts. And that's also huge. And yeah, I tend to agree with you. I don't think there's nothing that I can see besides, somebody getting hurt, like a guy like Stone getting hurt that could really change things. Or Eichel, of course. Eichel's one of the prolific goal scorers in the league. And I love Cassidy. And I think we all have learned what a wonderful coach Cassidy was, if you didn't already know it, in his days in Boston. The guy just flat out knows how to coach. You mentioned Brett Howden. It's interesting because I'm trying to remember the game. It was a few games ago where Cassidy was really unhappy with the second period that he had, and he didn't play him as much later in that period and didn't play him a lot in the third period. And I guess he probably gave it to him between periods. And what does Howden do? Scores the tying goal. I think it was a couple games ago, and then talked about that after the game. Cassidy holds players accountable. Yes, he's a player's coach, but he has personal relationships with all these guys, but he holds them accountable, man. And I love to see that.
Yeah, well, that's the thing about coaching. There's sort of a big poo-poo on toxic masculinity and this sort of old school coaching, like, get your head out of your ass and get out there and fight, and like old school, that's just the way that you do things. And today you sort of have to be more tailored to the person, right? You have to learn, like, well, that doesn't work with this guy. Yelling at him doesn't work. It makes him worse, makes him hold the stick a little tighter, makes him uncomfortable. So maybe he needs some positive reinforcement. But it's like the mark of a good coach to figure out which buttons to push and to push them correctly. And you know how far you can push. And I do think some of that old school stuff is a little archaic. Like Mike Babcock kicking a guy in the back or whatever the hell they did. Like, relax.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think there has to be that happy medium, and that's the way we are today, where the best coaches have personal relationships and treat players differently. I couldn't agree with you more. I want to talk to you a little bit about this new poker show you got going. You sent me kind of a preview of it. It looks really cool. You got some of the best characters in the game on this show that's going to be on YouTube. Can you talk to me a little bit about this show and tell me why you're excited about it?
Okay, I'm like incredibly excited because I promise you, this is the best, coolest, innovative poker show I've ever been a part of in my 30 years. Great news for you. You can watch it whenever you want on YouTube. You go to GG Poker's YouTube page, totally free, and there'll be, I believe, weekly segments. And it's sort of, if you saw Physical 100 on Netflix and you understand sort of how Koreans do reality TV, That's sort of a cross between what we've got here with poker, where it's poker meets reality TV in a very unique concept where I'll tell you ahead of time, there's 16 of us and none of us knew what we were getting into. So it's almost like Squid Game, which first prize is $456,000. So if you watch Squid Game, you'll understand the significance of that number. But you're going to love this show. Make sure you tune in. It'll be available November 8th on GG Poker's YouTube channel. You subscribe to it, you'll get notifications when it's up. But like I said, with YouTube, you can watch it whenever you want. You can watch it live when it airs, or whenever you got the free time, and you're going to love it. It's a unique. I don't want to give away too much because I think it's important for you sort of to be surprised. Mm-hmm. But it combines a lot of like really cool reality TV show ideas with the game of poker, and you get to see some of the personalities behind the scenes.
And some of those personalities, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. Jungle Man, you'll see him. Josh Aurier, some of your friends, and some loudmouths too that make it a little bit more fun, right?
You have like the wannabe cult leader and Charlie Carroll with the long hair. You've got Jungle Man. And if you saw in the clip, if you go to my Twitter page, you'll see that little sizzle reel. You see Jungle Man tell the guy to F off. And the other one's like, are we even friends right now? So there's like, so I'll give you a little tip. But like generally poker's a game where you play your money, your decisions, right? In this format, there's going to be a little bit of dependence upon others. So I'm going to need you, Brian, if you're on my team. I'm going to need you to perform. And if you don't perform, you screw over the whole team. And that means you screw me. So it's a game where there is one winner, one survivor, but along the way, you need allies.
I get that performance speech from some of my dates all the time, Daniel, but that's another story for another show. Anyway, I appreciate you coming on as always. That's always why I love having you on, Daniel, is we're not always talking about poker. We talk about things that are quite frankly even a lot more important than just poker, and always appreciate it when you're on the right side of history, on a lot of these topics that we talk about, at least in my opinion. And I appreciate your time, my friend. Get some rest, enjoy life a little bit, and limit your poker, man. Get some rest this month.
Will do. Thanks again for having me on the show. It was a pleasure.
Happy to have you on, Daniel, anytime. Thank you very much. That's Daniel Negreanu, the real Kid Poker himself. It's been a little while since we had him on, and really, really, really smart guy. He really is. I love having him on, and I could just bounce anything off of him, and he's so eloquent. I wish that guy would run for office. If you're born in Canada, you could run for office, right? If you live in this country and you're a United States citizen, I don't know. Maybe I'll have to ask some historians about that because I'm ignorant to that, I guess. But no, Daniel is the kind of guy that I would absolutely support if he ran for office. There's no question about that. He's fair. He's pragmatic. He's very smart. And I love anybody that has like a big platform and uses it for the right reasons, not just for personal gain, right? There are certain people with platforms like Candace Owens or Charlie Kirk that use their platforms to spread bigotry and hatred so they could sell more books and make more appearances on Fox News. Daniel Negreanu does not do that. He uses his platform. Sure, of course he talks about poker. Sure, of course he promotes poker and he promotes things he's got going on in his career. Nothing wrong with that. But he also calls out bigotry. He calls out hatred. And I appreciate that about him. And as I would say that for anybody with a platform, especially his, because he has a huge platform. He's one of the biggest names in poker, and he has been for decades, to do that. So I applaud him for doing that, and I think everybody should do that. If you have a platform, we're not going to agree on everything. I understand that. But use it for the right reasons. Just call out bigotry, man. Call out hatred. And he's so right. It should have nothing to do with politics, right? I started off the segment last hour just talking about anti-Semitism and hatred, and somehow that turned into a political conversation. You don't call out the left. You don't do this. I mean, I don't know. I can't speak in more layman's terms, and I can't help it if some people don't understand it. It doesn't matter what part of the world you live on. It doesn't matter whether you're Palestinian or Israeli. Innocent people dying is unacceptable. And that's what I try to do on this show. I try to call out hatred and bigotry, and I'm going to continue to do that, man. That ain't changing. I ain't going anywhere. Tomorrow on the show, Congressman Seth Moulton will be joining us. He ran for president. He also ran against Nancy Pelosi. He is a war hero. And talk about somebody that I have the utmost respect for in Seth Moulton. Congressman will be joining us tomorrow on the program. So certainly looking forward to that. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. As always, it's always a rush, whether we're talking about Josh McDaniels, that clown that was finally fired, or talking about Mark Davis, talking about the Israel-Palestinian conflict, or talking to one of the best poker players in the world, in Daniel Negreanu. It's always a good time, and that's what we do on this show. We mix it up. Thanks for joining us. I do appreciate all the calls, even those that called in and didn't have nice things to say about me. That's okay. You're still welcome to call back anytime, as I will always leave my phone lines open to anybody that agrees or disagrees with me. We will see you tomorrow, same time, same place. Thanks to Justin for touching all those knobs and getting things right. And we will, because I don't always get it right, that's for sure. We will see you tomorrow on the show. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Have a great day.